Good morning, dears, and welcome to Super Coaching for UPSC by Textbook. And I am Pradeep, your economy mentor. And today we meet here to discuss one of the very important topic of Indian economy, that is World Trade Organization. So let's connect little fast so that we can start it. Good morning, dear. Good morning. So am I audible? Let me know. Am I audible? So let me tell you that in what manner we are going to proceed with this lecture. So first of all, I will that means give a background for WTO. That means we will discuss some basic facts. After that, I will discuss the structure. Then we will discuss the objectives of WTO. Then we will discuss that achievements of WTO, and after that we will discuss that hurdles or challenges faced by WTO, and then we will discuss the way forward. So this is going to be scenario in regard to our today's session. So let's start our session. So first of all, let me tell you that what is WTO. What is WTO? WTO is a intergovernmental organization which regulates the trade among the countries, among different countries. So let me give you once again, let me repeat it once again. What is WTO? WTO is a intergovernmental organization. Intergovernmental organization which regulates the trade or international trade among different countries. So that means the purpose of WTO is to have the free flow of trade or to enable free trade among the different countries. The objective or the main objective of WTO is to have the free flow of trade among different countries among or throughout the world. That is the main objective of WTO, and this came into force from 1st January 1995. Okay, that means WTO came into effect from 1st January 1995. And but before that, let me give you a background for this, and that how that means development of WTO took place. Okay, that means what has been done in regard to WTO and how it has been developed. It is not like that first the WTO, as I said, that it became effective from 1st January 1995. So that means it is successor of GATT. It is successor of GATT. So what is GATT? General Agreement on Tariff and Trade. General Agreement on Tariff and Trade. So this was that means constituted or established in 1948. In 1948 in Geneva. In Geneva. So what is the background? Let me tell you people. So what was there? That, as I said, that during the that 1930, the Great Depression took place in world economy, and because of this Great Depression, the developing countries, especially US, that imposes the trade barriers. We can talk about the trade barriers. They have the trade barriers, that they impose the quota, and they also impose the tariff, import tariff. My dears, please try to understand import tariff. Let me give you the idea that why there was need to have the WTO or ITO or GATT, okay, and how the whole process started and what was the significance. Okay, as I said that in 1930 the Great Depression took place in world economy, and when the Great Depression took place, that means in order to avoid the situation something like Great Depression in future, that the developed country all or the other countries, developed country thought about that they should not be affected by the world depression in future, and for that they took some measures. They took some measures, and first country that took the measures in the form of tariff barriers, that was USA. USA took the measure, and they increased their tariff barriers. Tariff barriers means, what is the meaning? Means that means they are going to impose the tax on imports. If any that means enterprise or any industry is going to import the raw material from the other country, they have to pay high rate of tax, that is known as import tariff. Okay, so that means USA imposed the tariff barrier in order to protect, or in order to protect the domestic industry, or in order to, that means just to protect from the Great Depression of 1930 in future. Okay, that means they were that means disintegrating their economy from the world economy, so that they cannot be affected from the Great Depression in future. And for that they imposed the tariff barriers, and at the same time they imposed the quota, import quota as well. Okay, that import quota means they fix the, that means you can only import that much amount. That is the meaning of import quota and tariff barriers. And first among them was the USA, and after the USA, that means it was also imposed by UK, it was also imposed by Germany, it was also imposed by that means Belgium, it was also imposed by other countries as well. Okay, other developed countries as well. So what was the significance? That significance of this, that imposing the trade barriers resulted in that there was decrease of 40 to 60%, 40 to 60% world trade up in 1932. Okay, and it was also expected, this was also one of the reason for Second World War. This was also one of the reason for Second World War. That means the world trade decreased because of this trade barriers, which was imposed by developing countries, that resulted into 40 to 60% reduction in international trade. And this was one of the reason, this was also one of the reason for the Second World War. So after the Second World War, it was thought by the world community at large that there should be some organization or organization which can regulate the international trade in order to have the free flow of trade, because it reduced to 40 to 60% because of these trade barriers. So in 1944, as we discussed yesterday, in 1944, Bretton Woods Conference took place in Hampshire, USA. Bretton Woods Conference took place in Hampshire in 1944. And in that conference, Bretton Woods Conference, it was decided that the world community at large will raise or will establish three institutions. One is IMF, International Monetary Fund. They also thought to establish a World Bank, that was known as IBRD, International Banks for Reconstruction and Development. And they also thought to develop a ITO, that was known as International Trade Organization. Be very clear. Okay, so that means in just to regulate the trade, free flow of trade, because of this tariff barriers which was imposed by the developed country after the Great Depression, that resulted 40 to 60% reduction in international trade. So after the Second World War, the world community at large thought that there is need to re-establish the countries which is being affected by the Second World War. At the same time, there should be an international organization which can regulate the international trade in order to have the free flow of international trade. And there should also be an international organization which can create the cooperation among different countries, monetary cooperation. That's why they thought to establish three very important organizations, that was known as IBRD, that is also World Bank. The second they thought to IMF, International Monetary Fund. After that, they also thought to develop ITO, International Trade Organization, and that significance, they thought that the significance of this ITO or the objective of ITO will be to regulate the international trade, to regulate the international trade, to have the free flow of trade. And for that, they have to reduce the import barriers, import tariffs. Not only they have to reduce the import barriers, but they have to reduce the, or they have to restrict, or they have to eliminate the quota barriers as well. So what happened that in the Bretton Woods conference, that means this two institutions, IBRD and IMF was materialized, but this ITO was not materialized because of resistance from USA. That USA was not ready to, and they took many time to decide whether they are going to be part of ITO or not. That means USA Congress do not ratify. So what happened? That this was of the 1944 when they thought that, but this was taking time. So in between in 1947, in 13th October 1947, 13 October 1947, United Nations Conference of Trade and Employment, United Nations conducted a United Nations Conference on Trade and Tariff, and in that trade and tariff, they decided to have the GATT. Okay, that means GATT means general, because that means we want to have the ITO, International Trade Organization, in 1944. That means in the Bretton Woods conference only, but that does not materialize, and it does not materialize because of resistance from developed country, because they have to reduce their tariff barriers and they have to eliminate their quota barriers. So that means in between, world community at last thought to proceed with the agreement in the form of, and that's why in 1947 in Havana, a conference took place in Havana, that is known as United Nations Conference on Trade and Employment. In that conference, they decided to have GATT, that is known as General Agreement on Tariff and Trade. General Agreement on Tariff and Trade. And in order to have this effect, there was need to sign it by 56 countries, but only 53 countries signed it. USA did not sign it. But in 1948, again, in 1948, in Geneva, that GATT meeting took place in Geneva, and this was materialized. So GATT come into effect from 1948. Okay, so that means this GATT, General Agreement on Tariff and Trade, General Agreement of Tariff and Trade is the preceders of WTO. So what is difference between WTO and GATT? Why we converted? Why there was need to convert the GATT into WTO? Now we are going to focus on that thing. Okay, is it making sense? Now we are going to focus that what was the need. So we have to focus that this general agreement on tariff and trade, this was not a organization, be very clear. This was not a organization, rather it was a agreement. It was a agreement only. So that means the contracting party, 23 parties or 23 countries signed the Havana Charter, Havana Agreement. So that 23 parties was known as contracting party. Since this GATT was not a institution, it was just a agreement. It was just a agreement, and it was dealing with the trade of service goods, especially agriculture and textiles. It was not having any provision to relate to the trade in services. It was not having any regulation in regard to regulation of intellectual property right. So that means it was very limited. The scope of GATT was very limited. Why it was very limited? It was very limited because first of all, it was not an institution. It was simply a agreement. That's why that the countries which signed the agreement, that was known as contracting party. They were not the member, rather they were a contracting party. Not only that, that was regulating the rules related to the trade in goods only, especially trade in agriculture and textile. That was not having any provision for the regulation in services. That was not having any the regulation in regard to intellectual property right, etc. So this was the scenario. So that means continuously the efforts carry on, and there was 8 round of talks, and they were known as with different names. And in the Uruguay round, the final draft was signed. And that's why in the Uruguay round, that Marrakesh agreement, under the Marrakesh agreement, this GATT was converted into WTO. GATT was converted into WTO. That means efforts was carry on, and in between there was that issues of the developed countries. That means they were having the issues regarding the intellectual property right. They were having the issues with regard to trade in agriculture commodity. They were having the issues in regard to trade in services. That's why that rounds continue, the talk rounds or negotiation rounds continue, and there was 8 round of talks, and this 8th round continue from 1986 to 1994. 1994, that was 8th round, and that was known as Uruguay round of negotiation. In that Uruguay round of negotiation, finally, under the then Director General of that GATT, that was Duncan, Mr. Duncan, they signed the agreement, and that means again this was converted, GATT was converted into WTO. So this was the background. This is the background in regard to WTO. Okay, so that means headquarter of GATT was also in Geneva, and the headquarter of WTO is also in Geneva, Switzerland. Okay, so that means that why this WTO was converted into why the GATT was converted into WTO? GATT was converted into WTO because first of all, it was not a institution, it was simply a agreement. And second thing, it was not dealing with the trade in services, it was not dealing with the intellectual property right, it was not dealing with other things. So that's why there was reservation of the developed countries. So that means in different rounds that the negotiation continue, and that means that genuine concern of the developed countries as well as developed country, genuine concerns of developing countries as well as developed countries was taken care by the then Director General of GATT, that is Mr. Duncan, and that efforts was made to materialize it, and then the GATT was converted into WTO, that is known as World Trade Organization. That's why from 1st January 1995 the WTO came into effect, okay, and that is known as under the Marrakesh Agreement, because this was signed, that Mr. Duncan proposal was signed in Marrakesh. That's why it is known as Marrakesh Agreement, okay. So this is very clear. Now we are going to focus that what was the shortcomings, okay. So that why that although we discussed it, but I am just going to summarize once again that what was the shortcomings of GATT, why it was converted into WTO. Very first, as I said, that it was not a institution, it was a contract or agreement. That's why the members, they were not the member, rather they were only the contracting parties, okay. Second thing, it was not having the institutional structure. It was not having the institutional structure because it was not a institutions, so it was not having, it does not cover, okay, we discussed already, it did not cover the trade in services, intellectual property right, etc., okay. So that means there, and that GATT was, since it was simply a agreement, and there was provision that was known as founding provisions. Under the GATT there was provision, suppose India is a founding member of GATT, okay, India is founding member of GATT, okay. So suppose founding, what is the meaning of founding father clause, okay, that means under the GATT provision there was, just to make the contracting party, the provisions of GATT was very liberal, okay. So that means there was one provision that was known as founding father provision. Under that provision, this was the provision that the WTO, that means India has to follow only those provisions of GATT which is not in contradictions with the trade provisions of India. That was very liberal. That means the contracting parties has to follow only those provisions which are not in contradictions with the provisions of GATT, okay. So that means they were not having, because of that only, they were not having any disputes settlement resolution mechanism. And GATT's biggest failure was that they were not ready to remove the tariffs and non-tariff barriers, okay. We will discuss that what are the tariff barriers, means they are going to impose the taxes on import and export. There are non-tariff barriers as well. What are those, we will discuss when we will discuss it in detail, okay. So that means the biggest flaw of GATT was that it was not able to remove the tariffs and non-tariff barriers, okay. Although the GATT was established to remove the tariff and non-tariff barriers only, okay. That's why USA was not ready. That's why they took all together. They have not decided whether they are going to be party or they are not going to party up to 1950 on the matter of ITO. So these were the shortcomings of GATT. That's why GATT was converted into WTO. Now there is WTO, so that is known as World Trade Organization. So this is about the background. Now we are going to proceed further and we are going to discuss the structure of WTO. we will discuss the structure of WTO. So when we talk about the structure of WTO, that the highest decision making body in WTO is known as ministerial conference. Highest decision making body in WTO is known as ministerial conference, and for the day to day activities, that means the body which runs the day to day activities of WTO is known as General Council. General Council. So that means that the highest decision making body is Ministerial Council, and the meeting of Ministerial Council took place after every 2 years. After every 2 years, the proceedings or the meeting of Ministerial Conference takes place. But the day to day activity of WTO is taken care by the General Council. So all the members are the member of Ministerial Conference, and the General Council is being headed by a Director General. General Council is being headed by Director General. Director General. And who is the current Director General of WTO? Anyone in the comment section can tell me who is the current Director General of WTO? Who is the current Director General of WTO? Let me give you a hint. She is lady, and she is first lady to head WTO, and she is from Nigeria. WTO is headed by a Director General. The name of Director General is Goji, and it's silent, Okojo Ibila, Gojo Okojo Ibila. Let me write it once again. The Director General is Goji Kojo and Ibila. Okay, she is first lady Director General of WTO, and she is from Nigeria. Okay, doctor, she is from Nigeria. So she is the first. Be very clear that she is the first. This is most important thing. She is the first lady Director General of WTO. So this is about the that means structure. Now we are going to focus that other things. Now we are going to discuss the objectives. Now we are good morning Nirdos, but too late. Now we are going to discuss that objectives of WTO. So when we talk about the objectives, we can say that it sets and enforces the rules for the international trade. That the basic objective of WTO is to remove the tariff and non-tariff barriers, or to ensure the free flow of trade, and for that to have the smooth flow of trade, that it enforces the rules, it sets the rules for the international trade. Not only this, it also, that means what was the drawback of GATT? That was not having any forum for the dispute resolution. So that means the second objective is going to be that it provides the forum for dispute settlement or for the negotiation, and not only that, it also that provides the forum for further monitoring the further trade liberalization. Okay, it cannot be that trade cannot be liberalized in one day. Okay, that systematically the trade barriers are going to be eliminated systematically, trade barriers. So that means this WTO provides the platform or provides the forum for the negotiations, and not only negotiation but also that it provides the forum for monitoring the further trade trade liberalization, efforts for further trade liberalization. Not only this, it also that means provides the forum for trade dispute, because we discussed that there are in the structure only there is trade dispute body. Okay, there is trade dispute body. Under this structure of WTO, there is trade dispute body and there is trade policy review policy. That means this, when they review the policy, the General Council itself acts as trade policy review body. When it that settle down the disputes, the General Council acts as the dispute settlement body. It is not like that they are separately existing. This General Council itself acts as dispute settlement body. Okay, at the same time it also works as the trade policy review. There is appellate authority. Okay, that means whatever disputes are settled, that means they can be reviewed before the appellate authority. Before the appellate authority. So there is provision that the whatever they review the disputes, that whatever they settle the dispute, General Council settle the dispute as a dispute settlement body, they can be reviewed before the appellate authority. So this is about the and they have the General Council for goods and they have the council for trips. Okay, that is whenever there is any that means issue related to the that pharmaceuticals companies regard to license, it is deal with the trips, trade related issues for intellectual property rights. Okay, so that means that is always in news. Okay, and we will discuss it in very detail. Okay, when we will have the in detail discussion. Okay, so this also have the service council that deals with the rules and regulation related to trade in services. So this is about the structure. So that means it also has the that means trade resolve the trade issues. Okay, not only this, it also increases the transparency in decision making. Earlier there was no the transparency. Why? Because that countries was free to impose the tariff and non-tariff barriers. So there should be a common scenario, okay, where they can reduce the, when there can be free flow of trade. There can be free flow of trade when there will be minimum or no trade barriers, be the tariff trade barriers or non-tariff trade barriers. So that means it ensures that in what manner and how you are going to reduce your trade barriers. Okay, so that means there is going to be transparency in the decisions. Not only this, it cooperates with the other major financial institutions, which is instrumental for the management of global economy. Okay, so that means it cooperates with the other major international institutions involved in the global economic managements. Not only this, it helps the what is the other objective? It helps the developing countries benefiting from the global trading system. How the developing countries are going to, how the developed countries are going to be benefited? The developed countries are going to be developing countries are going to be benefited, because when there will be free flow of trade, when there will be free flow of trade, okay, that means it is going to increase the production. Okay, that means there is going to be, that country is going to exist which has the efficiency in production. So that means all the countries are going to be benefited. That is known as comparative advantages. Okay, I cannot discuss this concept here. Comparative advantages. Okay, earlier that there was absolute advantage. Okay, they were talking about that there is some country has the absolute advantage because of physical and because of their natural factors, but the other scholar said that there is comparative advantage as well. Okay, so when there will be that means comparative advantage means that means the because of their topology, because of their natural factors, because of their that means labor, because of their capital, some country naturally have the advantages for production of certain things, whereas other countries has the natural advantages for producing other things. Okay, so when there is going to be free flow of trade, so the countries are going to produce only those things in which they have the superiority, they have the advantage. So the cost of production is going to decrease, and because of that the production of those commodities are, and they can that means import the other things from that country which have the advantage for production. Okay, so that means because of that the production is going to increase. When the production is going to increase, that means be the case of developed country or be the case of developing country, that they will be in position to produce certain things with advantage. So when the production is going to increase, the employment is going to increase, per capita income is going to increase, economic growth is going to increase. That's why that the purpose of WTO is also to benefit the developing country from the international trade. Okay, so this is the purpose, and these are the. So now we are going to proceed further, and we are going to discuss that these are the objectives. Now we are going to discuss that achievements of WTO. We are going to discuss the achievements of WTO. When we talk about the achievements, it global facilitation of trade. Okay, that means it increase the trade. Okay, it increase the global trade, because earlier there was, and when there will be a free flow of trade, as we said that it is going to be benefited to all. Okay, be the case of developed country or be the case of developing country, it is going to, and the provision is that developing country has not to remove their trade barriers altogether at one go or one instance, rather they have to reduce their barriers slowly in systematic phase, and they have to develop the capability of their industries. That is known as protectionism. Okay, that in the initial phase they are able to, or they will be in position to protect their industry, because the industry of developing country will not be capable to have the competition with the industry of the developed country. So in the initial phase they can adopt the protectionist policy, but they have to reduce those protectionist policy that systematically. That is going to increase the free flow of trade, that is going to increase the global facilitation of trade. Okay, so that means it has increased the that means it is expected that in 25 years it has increased the 60% or 80% free trade. Okay, so that means improve the economic growth. Okay, that since 1995 it is expected that it has increased the economic growth 2.7 times. Because of the free flow of trade, the economic growth in the countries has increased 2.7 times more. Not only this, that means domestic reforms and market opening commitment, meaning as I said that protectionist policy is not going to benefit the developing countries or any country, because if you will not face the competition, your capability is not going to develop. So when there is going to be free flow of trade, that means intentionally or unintentionally that the industries has to develop their capability, that is going to increase their efficiency, and that is going to increase their efficiency, that is going to decrease their cost of production. When that is going to increase their cost of production, it is going to make their product competitive. So it is going to increase the production as well as it is going to increase their exports. So it is going to increase their income. So that means this is nothing but domestic reforms that you cannot protect for anyone for forever. That is not going to increase the efficiency. So there is need to. So that these domestic reform, that means elimination of the tariff and non-tariff barriers, is going to increase the efficiency of domestic economy or especially developing countries. it increase the global value chain. That means now since that means each and there is competition because of the free flow of trade. So that means this is going to increase the efficiency. So it is going to, in order to increase the efficiency, they have to increase the that means adopt the new technology, and that's why it is going to increase the quantity and quality of the product. That means it is going to increase the quality as well as quantity, and because of increase in quantity the production is going to increase, and because of increase in quality that living standard and peoples are going to have the access to the better goods and services. This is the meaning of that it has increased the global value chain. And the global trade has also been uplifted the living standard of the poor country, because that we said that 2.7 times on average the economic growth has increased 2.7 times. So that means the economic, because of the free flow of trade, the economic growth has increased in the poor country as well. So it has lifted the standard, living standard of the poor country, or it has reduced the poverty. So these are the achievements of WTO. Now we are going to discuss the recent challenges of WTO. What are the challenges of WTO? So when we talk about the challenges, we can say that China's strict capitalism. Okay, what does it mean? It means that the the purpose of WTO is to have the free flow of trade, but since most of the companies are in China is being owned by the China, okay, China government, okay, that is only one Communist Party of China. There is only one party, that is Communist Party of China, that is known as totalitarian. Okay, that means China is not a democratic, it is considered to be a totalitarian country. Okay, so that means there is no freedom of press, there is no system of party, so that type of system is known as totalitarian. Okay, so that means that China state capitalist means that China owns the companies, and they put the bars. Okay, they adopt the protectionist policy, especially against USA. That is known as US trade war, US China trade war, US China trade war. That means they are putting restrictions for trade between each other. Okay, and because of that the basic purpose of WTO is going to be defeated. This is the that means recent challenge. Okay, the US China trade war is the recent challenge before the WTO, because they are putting trade barriers in regard to trade with each other. If they are putting trade barriers in regard to trade with each other, that basic purpose of WTO is going to be defeated. Not only this, there is institutional issues. What is the meaning of institutional issues? The meaning is that appellate authority we talk about. The appellate authority is not working since 2019. If the appellate authority is not working, that means what is that dispute settlement the body is not going to work. Okay, there is lack of transparency in decision making. What is the meaning of lack of transparency? That means there is each and every country, in order to have the benefits of trade, that means each and every country is defining itself as a developing country, because there is different provisions for developing countries. So there is no clarity that on what criteria the countries are going to be developing or developed. So the countries are that is self-declaring developing countries in order to avail the benefits. And there is that recent challenge in e-commerce and digital trade, because nowadays digital trade and e-commerce, the trade is taking place from e-commerce and digital trade. Not only this, agriculture and development, that there is something which is known as agreement on agriculture. Tomorrow we will discuss that agreement on agriculture. Okay, and it is very important. Okay, so that means that there is issues to the developed country in regard to food security, and food security is very important for the developing countries, and that violates the provisions of WTO. Okay, so these are the challenges before the WTO. Now we are going to proceed further and we are going to discuss the way forward. Okay, so that means there is need to modernize the WTO and develop the new set of rules dealing with the digital trade and e-commerce. That means there is no rules for the dealing with the digital trade and commerce, so there is need to develop the rules for trading digital trade and e-commerce. That means there is need to deal with more effectively with China's trade policies and practices. Okay, so that means there is need to handle the state owned enterprises and industrial subsidies. They are giving industrial subsidies, and given the pressing issues around the climate change, increase efforts, okay, trade and environment sustainability, there is need to have the that means that efforts to align the WTO measures with regard to trade and environment sustainability, so that both tackle climate change and negotiate WTO. So this is about the today's session, and today we finish here only. If there is any doubt, let me know. Okay, we stop here. If there is any doubt, let me know. And to resolve your queries and to get the PDF and lot many things, just join this Telegram ID and we will conduct the sessions as well. Okay, that means live sessions on this Telegram ID. So I request or I advise you people, all you people, to join this. Okay, so that we can have the regular sessions on Telegram. Okay, related to current issues. Okay, at least I will that means meet you people on this Telegram ID twice or thrice in a week. So join this Telegram ID, and if there is any doubt, let me know. Otherwise, we stop here. Is there any doubt? So we stop here. Thank you very much, dears. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot.